Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon podcast. And if you've been listening, we've been talking to business leaders across Asia. And today we have a guest. You can see on the screen here, he is from Krip from Hong Kong. And he's my second guest, only my second guest. I've done over 70 episodes now, and he's only my second guest from Hong Kong. I apparently do not have many connections in Hong Kong. So we have David Wang with us, and he is actually the from Krip. And let me just share with you what is Krip actually. So Krip is Hong Kong's first personalized and comprehensive centralized credit card deal. So we'll actually talk a lot about this as well, and offers platform empowering consumers to spend smarter with innovative technology. And with over 6,000 credit card deals and offers 3,000 merchants and 480 Hong Kong credit and debit cards listed. And the reason why I invited him is because I saw we connected on LinkedIn, and I saw he won a lot of awards. So he had the Hong Kong 2023 Award of the Year, FinTech Grand Award, and FinTech Emerging Solutions Gold Award, Revive Tech Asia Awards 2023, Personal Excellence, and Accenture FinTech Asia Pacific Top 20 finalists, and many awards, including one from Alibaba as well. Alibaba Entrepreneur Fund Starter Top 100 finalists. And today we also talk about accelerators and incubators as well. And yeah, so like I said, it's over. His platform has over 6,000 credit card deals and 480 credit and debit cards. And yes, I'm very happy to have him here today, and we'll discuss, a lot of things from the startups to his company, to many things as an entrepreneur as well. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the humbling introduction, Bob, and it's a true honor to be on the show, especially as the second guest from Hong Kong. We need to do a better job of getting our names out there as well. But hopefully we'll be able to help you get the name out so more Hong Kong entrepreneurs and business leaders can join your podcast as well.
Thank you, David. Yes, I would love introductions to more Hong Kong entrepreneurs and business leaders. I had one a few months ago. Maybe I can introduce her to you as well. But yeah, it's good to have another person from Hong Kong. So my first question to all my guests is, what is your favorite Kung Fu movie?
That's a fantastic question, and I have one, but I'm a little bit ashamed. I probably should watch a little bit more. But maybe reflective of my age, one of my favorite Kung Fu movies is the one called The New Shaolin Temple. Maybe some of the other audience members might have seen the original one from the 80s, but this was a one that was made about 10 years ago or so, featuring Andy Lau and Jackie Chan. The reason I love this movie is really the story. It is quite a sad one. It follows Andy Lau, who started off being the warlord, who of course killed and pilgrimed in his life. And he really had a moment of awakening, I guess, where he realized this is not the right way of pursuing life. And so he sought enlightenment, if you will, through the Shaolin monastery, and actually fought back against his old warlords later on. And I won't ruin the movie for you, but effectively that's the storyline. And it's a very touching one, because I think it shows us that even those that you might deem to be, super evil or super dark or negative, with the right mindset, right dedication, every person can change for the better. And so that was a very, very touching movie for me.
Thank you, David. And yes, those are two heavyweights. So Andy Lau and Jackie Chan, I it must be quite some time, because I don't remember them being in a movie or at the same place recently. So I love that story, and definitely I will actually do my research on that movie and check it out, because yeah, I've had people mention Jackie Chan on the pod. Of course, because Jackie Chan has an extensive career. But I love that story of redemption as well. You mentioned he was a warlord and then he joined the Shaolin Temple. That's why it's called the New Shaolin Temple. So this is a podcast, but anyway, I'm actually Googling it. Is it called the New Shaolin Temple? Let me just find what year is it. It's 2011, right?
Yeah, I think it's about
2011. There. All right. Directed by Benny Chen. Okay, so I found it. So it's been some time, but it is a movie from what I hear. So I'm looking at the Google results right now, 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. So should be worth a watch. should be worth a watch. And I love that story of redemption. And of course, a great choice. That's an actual Kung Fu movie. I've had a lot of guests that come on and say Kung Fu Panda, but now we have an actual.
I mean, it is still technically a Kung
Yeah,
Fu.
it is. It is. It is. But that is a cop out. But anyway, finally happy to have someone mention an actual Kung Fu movie that I've not watched, and I will actually go and check it out. So,
Great.
thank you so much, David. All right. So, as the founder of Krip, and your extensive journey as well in finance, so how did you come about founding Krip?
Yeah, it's a bit of a personal story. I consider myself a bit of a credit card geek for a long time. I'm sure some listeners might be able to relate. In Hong Kong and many other parts of the world, different credit cards give you different offers, deals, miles. So there are people like me who have multiple cards. I have like 10 plus credit cards, and you just use the right card for right transactions, and you get a lot of different deals and information. But going back to 4 or 5 years ago, there was a time when I was actually buying a present for my mom for her birthday, and I went to this shop. I was about to pay, and then I was told that there was a deal with a certain card, and if I paid with that card, I would get an extra jar of something, or I get a discount or something like that. And I wasn't aware. And I was kind of shocked. Maybe I was a little bit too arrogant, but I thought I knew all the deals, but I didn't. And then it was after that I then realized what I knew was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how much deals content there is. And I thought, if I didn't know, there was no way an average person who don't know about these deals would have any clue. And that's exactly how this sort of sparks an idea in my head to say, hey, if we made this more accessible, we can unlock so much more value in the economy. And so that's kind of how Krip started.
Yeah, and as Asians, we love deals. We love
I don't
deals.
want to say it out loud, but
yeah, because I imagine as a credit card user myself, I don't know where are the deals. Actually, there's no centralized website. Even if you go to the banks or credit banks website, you cannot find it. And a lot of times in Malaysia, it could be just in a PDF on the website. so I imagine it's quite challenging for the user to use. So maybe explain as well, how does someone use Krip?
Sure, it's actually incredibly easy. So in short, what we've done is centralized all the deals from all the different banks, from all their different data sets. As you say, some of them, even in Hong Kong, they are showing up in PDFs. And so we've put that all into a single database. And so for your end customer, you can download our app, or you can go on our website. All you have to do is to just add your card to your profile. But in that process, you don't actually need to enter any personal identifying information. It's just a point and click. So you find the card that you have and you just click, and then we'll personalize the entire database based on your cards. So that once you're in the database, you're looking for deals across different retail categories like dining, fashion, healthcare, travel. You just go in, look for the shops, look for the merchants with the credit card deals, and then you're ready to go and you're ready to save money.
Sounds awesome. And it works even if I have multiple credit cards, right?
It's specifically designed for people with multiple cards. So you can actually select as many cards as you want, but on our mobile app, you can actually filter by individual cards. So even if you have 10 cards, maybe today I only brought out 2 cards, you can just filter it down based on those 2 cards.
Man, I wish that there was one here in Malaysia, because we really don't know when there is a deal. And most of these credit card deal websites are clunky and not user friendly. So how I normally know is when I visit a restaurant and there's this 10 card there and it says there's a deal, then I know which credit card to use. But if I had this information, I would choose a restaurant that has the deal even before going to the restaurant. So I can imagine how helpful it can be.
Yeah, no, for sure. And actually there's 2 things we're solving for. So one is what you're saying, right? People who actually might want to make a decision based on the deal, but then there's also another aspect of unlocking more transaction value. So the example here is, if let's say your bill was coming out to, let's say $250, right? Whatever currency it is. But if you spend 300, you get 15% off, which you actually spend more. And based on analysis, people actually tend to spend upwards of 30 to 40% more when there's a deal. So So it's also a way to actually drive more spending as well.
Yes, I imagine even from the credit cards perspective, it's not easy to come up with a partnership with a brand or with a retail store. So of course you want more people to leverage the deals and to take advantage of it and to make more transactions. The challenge is not many people know of the deals. So it helps to build better partnerships as well. So like the merchant would see that, oh yeah, we did the partnership with this bank and there's so many more transactions when they do. If the client doesn't know that, it helps to build better partnership, because my background is in marketing. So every time when I used to work in marketing, I would say, okay, like I used to work for a spa and I say, okay, hey boss, let's work with a gym, for example. And then my boss will ask me, so at the end of the campaign, how many people use it? And it's not it's not a great number, because people don't know there's a collaboration there. So I can imagine from a marketing perspective how it can be. And maybe my next question is more on the challenges. So I see, if when you do Krip, there are two challenges that I foresee. Number one is, of course, the user adoption, right? So, and to get people more to use, and of course, number two is the credit cards and that are in your platform. So, what sort of challenges do you face when you started out Krip?
Yeah, I mean, all those things you mentioned are all very core challenges I think we deal with. But I think for us, there's an even more fundamental or foundational challenge that we had to battle, which was the macro environment. So we started back in 2019. Actually, it took a while to get started, because once we started right as the Hong Kong protests began. I'm not sure if you guys may have caught the news. This is back in 2019. Hong Kong had quite a violent and tumultuous period of time. And then that immediately snowballed into the first COVID wave. So for us, it was really the challenge of just getting started. And especially at that time, no businesses really wanted to adopt new things, right? It was a time of hold and observe. And so, startups with innovative solutions was not on the top of their priorities, right? So for us, it was about perseverance, just keeping going, and then finding the right opportunity to embark on, whether it's a market launch or those business development conversations. That we actually think was the most challenging for us.
The challenge was to get into conversations, you were saying?
The challenge was really battling the macro environment of just companies, businesses that were not too keen on innovation or adopting new things, when the world was quite literally falling apart at that time.
Yes, I remember having clients in Hong Kong during the protest. And I can imagine, it is hard enough to get around during the protests, and then plus the 2 years of COVID with less retail spending, less physical retail spending. I think it could be a great challenge as well to get these companies on board. So like as of today, you have 6,000 deals, and you have let me just check. You have 6,000 deals and many credit cards, over 480 credit cards on the platform. Maybe can you share with us, how do you get so many of these, credit cards onto the platform?
So actually, all the deals that we are showcasing on our platform, these are all currently provided by the banks, right? So we don't actually go out and source deals for the banks. We act as a data aggregator and a data bridge. So the suppliers of these deals are effectively the banks and the merchants, and then there's the beneficiaries of these deals, and those are, of course, the end consumers and other businesses who actually want these deals to enrich their platform. And so we sort of serve as the bridge or the connector between those two endpoints. And so for us, our whole technology or our entire infrastructure is, the ability to turn these unstructured data from these various banks deals data sets, which are of course publicly available, into a very structured and centralized database that then we can provide through an API access. So that's kind of the role that we play. And so we basically support the banks in the deals that they've put together and to provide to their users. And we, solve, I think, what you were alluding to earlier about the visibility, the engagement challenge.
Yes, and good job on that. And it's a great. I'm actually looking at the website also at the moment, and I think for platforms like yours, the main challenges also revolve around user experience, right? The user satisfaction, and also just now you said you don't collect their personal data, right? You collect some data. So like how do you ensure the satisfaction, and how do you build trust with your users?
Yeah, I think we place a very big emphasis on the UX UI. And so when we are actually planning out the first prototype, we made sure we did that with our end users in mind. So we did a lot of testing. And I think the main thing that people wanted was just ease of access, right? I think going back to what you were saying, having deals in all kinds of places just makes it very difficult to access. So we want to make sure that even the hardest deal to find on our sites is only within 2 to 3 clicks at most 4. So we designed the entire platform so that you can find deals very, very easily and very quickly. And I think the second one is the personalization. But of course, going back to what you just said, the personal identifying, the data privacy, that angle is also a big concern to users, especially in Hong Kong. So we designed it in such a way that it doesn't require that data privacy risk, while still being able to provide that personalization angle. So that's really how we designed it, because we were listening to customers. And as I always say, for startups or really for any businesses, you have to listen to your end customers, right? Designing a perfect product from your own perspective might look really good, but if it's not what the customers want, then it doesn't really have any use. So we wanted to ensure that customer satisfaction was really the core DNA of the product.
Yeah, you said you listen to your customers, and do you have a approach to that? Do you do surveys, or do you have like feedback forms, etc.? How do you listen to your users?
Yeah, so of course we do sometimes go out and do the samples and the surveys, but of course that engagement it's not ideal because people tend not to submit those unless there is a strong incentive. So we do of course leverage those tools, but I think what we naturally see that's actually quite constructive in terms of feedback is just data insights, right? You look at the click-through rates, you look at what people like and dislike just based on the behavior, the browsing behavior, what kind of content gets them through the site. So for example, our website has actually done tremendously well on Google's SEO, even though we never actually planned for it. And so we realized that, hey, people actually like looking for deals at a merchant level. And that's actually very important because if you go on our site, you'll see that all the deals are categorized based on merchants. So if you go into a restaurant page, you'll see different deals from different banks on the same page. And that's actually a very unique way of doing this. Before we did this, nobody else did that. Everybody else just did deal by deal by deal by deal. So you could have the same restaurant offering 5 different deals and it would be listed as 5 separate deals. But we realized that's not how people look for deals. People look for restaurant A deals, restaurant B offers. And so that's why we designed the layout based on merchant grouping. So I think, as we embark in this digital age, these data points are very, very useful for businesses to understand, what works for their customers. So I would highly encourage people to actually spend a little bit more time on these data insights that will really unlock a lot of value.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, surveys are good, and yes, yeah, like you said, the best data that you can get is the data that you own, which is the user behavior on the website, and that's a great idea. So sorting them, showing them by merchants. So I just now when I mentioned I'll choose the restaurant. I'm not like as a user, I want to know all the deals at a restaurant rather than there's this deal for this and this deal for that, and it's like a separate thing. I prefer to know, okay, I can go to this restaurant and there's 5 deals there. So that is game changing indeed. So I think a great job on that. And because of that and because of what you do, you have received a number of awards. And just now I mentioned a few before we started the interview, like Hong Kong ICT Awards, FinTech Grand Award, Emerging Solutions Gold Award. So like, how do you feel when you get all these accolades?
Of course, it's a tremendous honor. We're very honored and humbled by the recognition. And I think it's really just a testament to the hard work we've put in. I think, of course, we stand very proud in receiving those awards, but having walked the path that actually brought us there, I think it's very rewarding just to see the recognition that what the hard work we've put in, it's actually recognized, and not just for ourselves, but really recognizing that this innovation is something that is well received in the community, in the city. And I do also think it's a reflection of the commitment that certainly the Hong Kong government and Hong Kong stakeholders have put into startups. I emphasize that specifically because the ICT awards that you just mentioned, this is a government-run competition on an annual basis to recognize the most innovative solutions across Hong Kong, but not just for startups. This is for all companies. And the fact that this year we were able to win the entire competition as a startup, and also as the first fintech startup to actually ever win this entire competition, I think it just speaks to the city's embracing of startups and entrepreneurship, which is something that I'm very excited to see. So we are very humbled and we appreciate the recognition, but I think that's just adding more fuel motivation for us to do even more.
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm in Malaysia. So from a outsider's perspective, I can see the championing of innovation, a lot of tech awards, a lot of especially from what I see as an outsider, that Hong Kong is very big into fintech and things like that. So it's really good to hear. And my next question would be, I see while preparing for this interview, you're part of many programs, you're part of accelerators, incubators, you name it. Maybe can you share with us, what programs you were part of and how did it help you as a tech startup?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first, I should say the most important accelerator in our growth is Cyberport. So Cyberport is one of two government-backed accelerators in Hong Kong. And Cyberport was more focused around fintech ecosystems. So that was a 2-year program that we were part of, and we actually graduated earlier this year. The graduation ceremony is actually in a couple of days. And so the most value add, I think, from accelerator standpoint is a couple of things. I think number one, of course, there is a subsidy in actual dollar terms. And of course, as a startup, every dollar helps. And so that was something that was very important to us. But I also think the way that it was structured, it actually forces you to really think about your business plan and business model and put it into KPI terms. And I think a lot of businesses, and I'm not an exception, I think when you start out, you're very idealistic in the product that you want to launch and all the different achievements you want to achieve. But how do you actually get there, right? And to get there in a way that's actually measurable. So that entire structural way of thinking, I'm very thankful for that graduation, the program in helping us to plan out our journey in that way. And of course, that was also during COVID, so they were very supportive along the way. And the second program that we just finished last month is the Accenture FinTech Innovation Lab. So we're one of 10 startups across Asia to be part of this program. And so their value add for us is really opening doors to the banks and their financial institution clients. We're able to speak to senior executives at most of the major banks and really have very real and insightful conversations and feedback from the potential customers, which are the financial institutions. And so being able to do that within a 6-month window is very, 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 very helpful to us, because otherwise it will take a very long time for you to really find out how or who you should get in touch with at these banks. So I think that I guess in summary, the value of accelerators is opening doors, helping you to really concretely put your business idea into an actionable plan, and to finally just put that stamp of approval and recognition as well, which then will help your partnership discussions and potentially fundraising activities as well.
Thank you for sharing that. I can imagine that you said you met all the banks in 6 months. So if without that program, for you to BD your way or like connect and network your way to these banks would take a very, very long time. So I'm happy to hear that really accelerated your growth in this space as well. So yeah, I can see the value on that as well, and good to hear about the Cyberport as well. So that is great to hear. And next one is more on the landscape of fintech, right? So like I said, from an outsider's perspective, I can see that Hong Kong has a lot of new initiatives and new technology coming up in fintech. So what are you excited about? And are you taking advantage of any of these new advancements?
Yeah, there's actually a lot that's going on in Hong Kong right now. So first of all, Hong Kong through COVID, I think, adopted a much more digital attitude towards finance. I think before COVID, Hong Kong is actually one of the most overbanked populations in the world, and actually has the most, if not one of the highest number of bank branches per capita in the world as well. And so often you'll see folks going to the bank to do a wire transfer or to just take some money out. But through COVID, there was increased adoption of fintech solutions, and there's now virtual banks and a lot of different fintech innovations that allow people to just engage in digital banking a little bit more effectively. So that's really good to see, and I think the Hong Kong Monetary Authority really wants to double down on that, and I think that's the right attitude. So there's actually a open banking framework that's in place. There's a fintech roadmap that the HKMA is pursuing to get the banks to go even more digital. And so to that end, it's good to see that the banks are being pushed to actually innovate even faster, and that's where the fintech startups like us are able to help maybe solve some of the gaps in the middle. On top of that, Hong Kong has also been very aggressive in pushing for virtual assets as well. They're giving out virtual asset exchange licenses, and just adopting a much more open-minded view on not just traditional assets, but also virtual assets. And I think for Hong Kong, that's a very welcoming change, because I think for a while there was a reputation that Hong Kong was a little bit slow to innovation around financial services. And so this is really good to see. And it's very exciting. You see a lot of conferences. Earlier this month, it was the Hong Kong FinTech Week. And you just see so many interesting companies, startups, and folks just coming together and picking each other's brains. So yeah, it's a very exciting time. And I think there should be more exciting things to come. And we're very happy to be part of that.
It's good to hear, and I learned something just now. I learned that Hong Kong has the highest banks per capita. It's the most overbanked place. I know I've not been to Hong Kong, but from hearing what you said now, it makes sense. There's a lot of financial institutions in Hong Kong, and yeah, very good to hear, and exciting times ahead indeed. So let us wrap up with this question. Thank you so much, David, for taking the time. So you shared, how you started in 2019 before the protests, and I can tell you, like, the protest was very severe. Like, a lot of my Hong Kong clients even moved out of Hong Kong. It was so bad because you could not move in the city, and it was quite detrimental. And after that, you had COVID. COVID lasted for 2 years. So maybe can you share with us some lessons you learned from this entrepreneurial journey you had despite the storm. Of course, you had help in these programs and accelerators, but here you are today, an award-winning company. So maybe can you share with us your learnings from this journey?
Yeah, there's a lot, but I guess within that context, I'll just share one that I think was the most important skill that I've learned, which is I guess I call it emotional stability, but it's really a attitude or mental skill to not let the lows get you too down, but at the same time, don't get overly excited when things are going super well. I think the startup journey is very much a roller coaster ride. When things are going well, everything is going well. You think, the sky's the limit. But when it's not going well, you really go through a very, very dark time. And I think letting your emotions ride with those events is very detrimental, not just to your company's own growth, but also to your own state of mind and your mental health. So I think, just keeping yourself in the middle. When the goings are going great, take the time to appreciate it and enjoy it. But when things are going tough, don't let it get you down too much, and try to just keep going and move forward. I think that's probably the biggest skill I've taken away from this path. And I think that's kept us, I guess, in a way, very grounded and sort of humble as well. Like you say, the awards have been phenomenal. and of course we take joy in receiving that recognition, but at the same time, we know we have to continue to push through. So yeah, I would say that's probably the most important takeaway for me.
So thank you so much for sharing that. So I really like that insight. It is like, hey, when you're high, don't go too high. You sort of in the middle, and you expect okay things when it goes low. You don't go too low as well. Especially entrepreneurs who have been through COVID. We actually know what that means. Going through the lowest times. So like how does it help you as a person like? Do you manage your emotions, or do you set your expectations, or do you say, hey, let's just soldier on? How do you apply it yourself?
I think it's a combination of all those things. I think setting the right expectation is incredibly important. I think being realistic with your expectations is actually more important. But I think it's really about you know managing what you can control and letting those things that you cannot control play out how it's meant to play out, and you just react accordingly, but not in an extreme way. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but I guess there's a lot of things in a startup journey that is just out of your control. I think COVID is probably the biggest one, right? I mean, who expected the world to just shut down like that? And that's things you cannot control, right? You can have the best business plan, but when those things happen, you just have to read and react. And so those times you can't let it get you down. Of course, we are all human, and those times happen. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide whether you want to let those moments eat you up, or you find a way forward, right? So I think I control as much as I can what I can control, but for those things I cannot control, I don't worry about it too much, and then just read and react.
Thank you, David. That is so gold, as I say, like focus on the things that you can control. Thank you so much, and that I think has contributed, and I see that perseverance and that you are where you are today. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks so much. And we're actually very keen to expand into other markets very soon. And Malaysia is actually one of the markets that I've been thinking about for a long time. I mean, I've been to KL quite a few times. I love KL, and it's a market I think that could benefit a lot from our platform. So we're hoping to bring Krip to Malaysia very, very soon.
Awesome. Please help me out. I was just at a cafe the other day, and I looked at the 10 card, and I said, hey, I should get a 10% discount. And when I paid, the cashier forgot to put in the discount. So I'm like, what? So things like this happen all the time. So yeah. So I hope you come to Malaysia very soon.
We hope so too. And thank you so much again for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Very honored to be the second guest from Hong Kong. Hopefully you'll have more soon.
I appreciate this as well. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.